All right, let's have some fun with watercolor. I really enjoy making large decorative papers that I can then use in my collages or as covers for my handmade sketchbooks. And today I just felt like playing with liquid watercolor and not having any preconceived notions about what was going to happen. So I wet my paper after taping it down, and I am using Blick Liquid watercolor. It is kind of a gummier substance, but it works really fabulously for projects like this, where you wet your paper, you drop down the color, and then I'm wetting it some more, you can start to see the blue there starting to bleed a little bit. Now I'm adding some violet and then some more water just to keep encouraging the color to spread and bleed and do whatever it and the water want it to do. And then with this technique, you can decide how far you want to take it. So this it kind of has like a little bit of a tie-dye vibe to it at the moment. I decided to add in some of the magenta and to just keep layering it in. I really enjoy working with analogous color schemes or sticking with warms or blues, warms or cools, and really letting the color play and do what it loves to do. And then I just keep going in with more and more water, just encouraging those colors to move. The gumminess of Blick liquid watercolor means that I need to work a little harder to get it to really like bleed out and kind of spread out from the blobs. But that's also really great because though I get those nice saturated color areas and then the outside edges blade out. Then I decided to go in with some metallic acrylic ink. So this is my silver that I'm dropping in, and that has its own viscosity, so it is going to react to the water as well as the watercolor that's already on the page. And it's a smaller dropper, so it's going to also then provide some size variation as well compared to the giant plops of liquid watercolor. Then I wanted to go in with some more contrast. So I decided to get out my acrylic black ink and drop that down in there. This one is a little bit thinner than the silver, so it's more inclined to play a little bit more with the water and the wetter areas of the liquid watercolor. So a lot of this is just play and seeing what happens with the different interactions of media. Went back to my liquid, a silver, sorry, went back to my silver acrylic ink to drop that on top of the black to add even more contrast. Because at this point, the silver was like blending in with the liquid watercolor. So I wanted to kind of bring it back and have it kind of sit on top of the black acrylic. More water. I love these little spray bottles of water. They're such a great way to quickly wet your watercolor palette, but then also just to really start getting some really beautiful bleeds of color on the page. And when you're using a lot of water, you tend to get a lot of runoff. So it's good to have some cloths on hand so that you can kind of dry up the outer edges of your board. Kind of helps keep the tape intact also. And this is what it looks like in its super wet state. Now it's dry. So we get to remove the tape, which is one of the best parts. Even if it bleeds over a little bit onto that white border, it still gives it a nice crisp look to it. And I'm using washi tape, which is really great because it holds the paper down pretty well, but it also peels up really nicely without tearing the page. So I highly recommend picking up some washi tape if you are interested in doing some watercolor like this. And you'll notice the colors are much more muted at the end.